Good afternoon and welcome back to Bald Father Bets, guys. We are going to take a look today at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and ultimately give our pick on that one. The reason we're giving it out now is we've already seen some line movement at several books, and we expect potentially more line movement to come in. And so we want to get that one out to you guys as quickly as possible, as well as also give you the number that you should feel comfortable taking it to, either up to or down to, based on, I'm not going to spoil it, based on who we go with, and then we will get out of here. But first, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so you know when we post, notifications for community post on as well, and then also interact with the content, like the videos, share them around, comment on them, anything you can do to help us grow. We really appreciate it. Never charge for the picks, just want to grow the channel. Okay. So the Peach Bowl Friday night going to be between Indiana and Oregon. Line 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3. Books are moving down right now, kind of across the board. No one ever did get to 5. 4.5 is the highest it's gone. No one has come down to IU minus 2.5 yet. It's anywhere in that region. Offshore holding a little bit stronger before coming down than on site, but than on U.S. soil. But it doesn't really matter. They're all going to eventually find water. They're all going to eventually be within a half point of each other. So let's take a look at when Oregon has the ball and IU's on defense. Oregon is not a West Coast offense, but Oregon is the elements of a West Coast offense without being one, and that it's either a check down or it's a touchdown. So Oregon is extremely, their running game even more than their passing game, but their running game is 100% reliant on big runs. So like metrics would tell you that they have a decent yards per carry. They don't. They have a average yards per carry, and then they get multiple big runs in a game that extends it out. But it isn't like they're consistently ripping off 4 and 5 yard rushes. They're ripping off like 2 yard and 3 yard rushes, and then mixed in there will be a 45 or a 50 yard or a 35 yard touchdown or a 60 yard touchdown, etc. So they rely heavily on explosive runs. The pass game is very, very similar too. So they have some of the speediest wide receivers that you're going to get. That's even with Evan Stewart out. They have Sadiq as well, who's probably the best pass catching tight end that we have left. Like he's more of a wideout than he is a tight end, and he's fast and he's big and he's a matchup problem for anyone. And then they have Vicorian Moore, who isn't a runner by any means, but can give you something with his legs. They don't do a ton in terms of being crazy schematically offensively. It's not like an extremely difficult system to learn or to run, but it does require the ability to read a defense pre-snap, and it does require speed, which they have speed, and that's really how it is that they're going to try and beat teams. They're better in the pass game than metrics would tell you, and they're worse in the run game than metrics would tell you. And also, Dante Moore has been improving all along as the season has gone on, especially with limiting mistakes. That's been kind of one of his biggest things. He actually didn't really make all that many mistakes against IU the first time they played. He held onto the ball too long, and that led to like 5 or 6 sacks, I think. I can't remember what the number was. But the interceptions at the end of the game, like one was off of a tip, and then the other was essentially in desperation mode while they were trying to get down. It wasn't like he didn't throw those in normal context of gameplay where it was just on him for throwing a bad pass and making a pick. Really, the difference in the game, the first game, was the tip ball interception that IU got when they already had a lead, and then they were able to go up by 2 scores. So then IU's defense. That's actually a pretty strong matchup for Oregon. So IU's defense is keeping things in front of them, but IU's defense gives up a big play here and there. So it profiles a little bit to fit with what Oregon wants to do offensively. They gave up the big touchdown play in the first game. It was Oregon's first touchdown. I think defender fell down a little bit on that, or ran into a ref or something. I can't really remember, but anyways, it was a big play touchdown. IU gave up essentially under 2 yards per rush, except for big runs in which Oregon was able to get a full first down run on several runs throughout the game. Offensively, Oregon only scored 13 points in the game, though. So there weren't enough big plays, and there were enough negative yardage plays from IU, tackles for loss, sacks, etc., that it kept Oregon off balance. One of the things that Oregon's going to need to do here in this game is stay relatively on track. They can afford the occasional 1, 2, maybe even 3 yard loss on a game because they have on a drive because they have enough offensively to where they can make up for it, but they can't live in that, or else offensively they're going to end up scoring somewhere in the teens. Dan Campbell has also shown an affinity to go for it on fourth down, even when he shouldn't, and there's a very good chance that the game offensively for Oregon is going to come down to a few 4th and 1s, 4th and 2s, maybe even 4th and 3s from around midfield. IU has shown an ability to deal with those types of things all year long. However, there is no world where anyone who knows what they're talking about would tell you that IU matches Oregon's speed. They do not. They do not match their speed. They do not have the same raw athlete on defense that Oregon's going to have on offense. At the line of scrimmage, IU's not going to be as big as Oregon is, but they play just as well. So IU doesn't generate a ton of pressure from just, I would say, regular pressure. IU generates their pressure schematically. It's why the matchup against Alabama was so bad for Alabama's offense, because IU had nothing to worry about from Alabama's run game, which meant if it was a given, we can stop Alabama's run game for the most part, really in any sort of defensive look we're in, well then I know I'm free to generate pressures from a schematic standpoint. IU doesn't really have that one in this against Oregon. However, what IU has is when they do want to generate those pressures, they have some advantage in terms of the speed that they're going to have on edge going up against a very large very large Oregon offensive line, but not necessarily the most athletic one you've ever seen. Isaiah World's a very big guy. Isaiah World's not going to wow anyone at the combine with like his shuttle time and things like that. Okay. Ultimately, there is a little bit of an advantage here for Oregon offensively if they hit the big plays and if they're over 50% on their fourth down conversions. Those are two very big ifs, but there is a little bit of a lean schematically to what Oregon's going to do on offense. So when IU has the ball, IU runs RPO at the highest rate out of anyone in college. And even their non-RPO plays are like RPO setup plays, if that makes sense. They run a very, very simple offense. It's not it's even less complex than what Oregon's doing. And it factors so much off of an RPO and then a dig route off of an RPO. And if you can't stop that initially, you're going to have some difficulty. They're efficient. They're not the best running team. They're not the best passing team. When you put everything together, they're the most efficient offense that's playing currently. They don't rely on big plays. They don't rely on just dink and dunks either. They have a very nice balance of gashing you with a big play every once in a while, hitting 3 plays for 12 yards, getting the first down on a 3rd and short, staying on schedule, not getting tackles for loss, Mendoza throwing the ball away when something's not there, making the correct decision. IU does that throughout the whole game. Oregon defensively, they are going to need to stop IU from staying on schedule with the run game to getting into 3rd and short. And then they are going to need to force Mendoza to beat them with his arm in something where you know the throw is coming and it's not a true RPO. So where Oregon excels defensively is in their secondary because they have so much speed in the secondary. It is better than any secondary IU has played up until this point, except for Alabama's, and then obviously the first time that they played Oregon. But I would argue a little bit that Oregon's secondary has gotten a little bit better. And Alabama was so wounded when they went into that Rose Bowl game, it maybe just didn't matter. And Alabama never earned the right to utilize their secondary because IU stayed on schedule the whole time. So IU was running like true RPOs. The secondary was essentially frozen in everything that they were doing. Oregon has to force IU into 3rd and medium and 3rd and long, where they know that that Mendoza has to throw. On a special teams side, Indiana win for sure. Significantly better on special teams. It's why if the game comes down to like a field goal or something like that, you would probably favor Indiana in that situation. From an analysis standpoint, it's very hard to beat a team twice. Oregon definitely has that going for them. I've heard that line used a million times. The last time Lanning had an opportunity to avenge a loss against Washington, though, he was a 10-point favorite and he got his ass kicked from the get-go. From an analysis of the line standpoint, so the first time these two teams played, Oregon was favored by 7.5 in Autzen. Let's say that Autzen was worth 5 points. It's not. I promise you, no odds maker is adjusting a line by 5 points for any home field advantage in college. I don't care if it's Kyle Field. But let's say it was 5 points just for the sake of being fun. So then that brings it down to Oregon being favored by 2.5 at the time. So that means for IU to be favored by 4.5 now, we're talking that we've had a 6-point adjustment in power ratings between these two teams between then and now. Granted, IU has had the most positive power rating adjustment out of any team in college football this year, and a majority of that came after the Oregon game. These two teams are not 6 points different from each other from when they faced off the first time. Oregon is bigger, stronger, faster. Oregon does not hold a coaching advantage by any means, but Oregon has a very good head coach. I think a little bit too much is made of Will Stein spending all his time in Kentucky this week and loop with Cal and all that stuff. Those things matter to an extent, and then they don't. Like, there's enough people on the Oregon staff who's watching film. They know what concepts from their side that they want to run. These teams have already played each other once too, so there's a lot of film watching going on from that standpoint. I am also a very big believer. The 2022 Ohio State +7 against Georgia is my favorite pick of all time. And one of the main reasons it was my favorite pick of all time was because athletes who were superior to 99.99% of the population, I'm not going to say they were 100% superior to Georgia. Georgia had really good athletes in 22 as well. But they were being told for a very long time that they weren't tough enough, they had no chance of winning. They couldn't compete. They didn't have it all. Michigan emasculated them, all that stuff, right? And human beings have a way of responding when things like that are projected on them. In this situation, you have athletes which are superior. Oregon has bigger, stronger, faster guys who are being told very strongly that they are going to lose this game, and they're going to lose it in a pretty strong fashion. Me and my buddy College Football Sam were going back and forth today. We finally found someone who picked Oregon. It was J.D. Pickell. Everyone else, every other single preview that is not Oregon biased or team associated, is picking IU, and they're picking IU to cover. And it's just wrong. Based on the margin of error within these two teams when you put them on a power rating standpoint, meaning that if you power rate these two teams based on metrics, IU is somewhere right around 3 points higher than Oregon based on what they've done throughout this year. But then you mix that with the fact of the college team composite and the fact that Oregon is superior athletically, you have a wrong team favorite situation on a neutral site. There is not an adjustment that is that great from the first time that these two teams played when the books had Oregon as a 7.5 point favorite. There's just not. The only true guaranteed first rounder on IU's team in the upcoming draft is Mendoza, and Dante Moore may actually end up being round 1, pick 1. It's between those two guys as to who will be number 1 overall, and it matters because there's a lot of people who want to go to the Raiders. Nobody wants to go to the Jets. You saw Dante Moore's post about it. This is my favorite play of college so far this year. There's another NFL game this week that matches it. But we are on Oregon plus 4.5, and we're doing it for 20 units. You are free to take it down to anything Oregon plus 3, and I do expect it to continue to come down, and I do expect it to get to 3. It may go under 3 because, again, the sharp side is Oregon here, and you have a wrong team favorite situation, and most respected money and most bettors were the shit recognize that very, very fast. I was hoping we would get 5. We didn't. I love whole numbers because they give you a push rather than a loss. But 4.5 is the best that we're going to get, and so we are taking Oregon plus 4.5, and we're doing it for 20 units. Okay, that is it. I will be back at you again throughout the week. Oh, one other thing I want to touch on. Evan Stewart, whether he plays or whether he doesn't play, it doesn't matter. He's very good, but he has no rapport built up with Dante Moore throughout the year. Or what are we going to do? Are we going to take away reps from Moore and Benson and Sadiq and targets for them to put in someone who is just coming off a patellar tendon tear and is significantly injured? Evan Stewart's very good. He's very talented. That stuff matters, guys. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden I got this player back in my Madden and he's a 92, so he slots in above this person. He hasn't been practicing all year. He has no rapport with Moore. If Evan Stewart plays and you get 2 catches for 30 yards from him, great. IU, though, definitely has to prepare for him in case he does play. Because how sick would you feel if you were IU, you just completely don't prepare for a guy, and then all of a sudden he goes off for 115 yards on you. So it is something that IU has to prepare for. I doubt he has any impact on the game. Okay, that's it. We'll be back at you again, guys, throughout the week. We're going to have an individual video for every single game this week between the 2 College Football Playoff Semifinals and all of the NFL wildcard games. Also getting you one of the NFL wildcard games today. Appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. Make sure you interact with the content, and let's go Ducks.